And I'm really thrilled to announce our keynote speaker, Mr. Jonathan Granoff, the president of the Global Security Institute, also trustee of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. Mr. Granoff is also a senior advisor and United Nations representative of the Permanent Secretariat of the World Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates, signatory to the Global Peace Offenses. So, Mr. Granoff, the floor is yours, and you will later also take part in a very interesting debate. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I want to thank the two distinguished organizations of science and art, the World Academy and the European Academy. Particularly want to thank the Alma Mater University for convening us. And I want to get right into it, but before I do that, I want to get a picture of you guys. So just put your most beautiful faces on and shine so I can share this with lots of people when I get home. Thank you. Because it doesn't matter like what I say if it doesn't communicate something and spark something in you. So I want to get right off from listening to what I've been hearing, something that I hadn't planned on talking about, but I want to start out with some basic facts that really mean a lot to me. And I hope it means a lot to you. 50% of the human population owns less than 2% of the world's wealth. That means there are mothers today deciding which one of their children will have enough calories to live the next week. That's a reality. 0.001% of the world's population owns 3 times the wealth of the bottom 50%, almost 4 billion people, owned by 0.0001%. Last year, over $2.5 trillion was spent in armaments. My country spent almost $1 trillion alone. But the statistics are that less than 318 billion would be needed to eliminate extreme poverty. So we don't really have a problem, a technical problem, in terms of taking care of billions of people right now. We don't have a problem of expanded knowledge. We have the technical capacity and we have the wealth. We hear people like Elon Musk talking about expanding consciousness. No, we need to expand conscience. We need to expand knowing the reality of what suffering is for so many people. And we need to talk about what it is to bring human security to people. We have so much security preoccupied with the security of states and institutions that we create. That we create states. I mean, states are a fairly recent creation, created in the 1640s to stop people arguing over whose definition of Jesus' love was better, and they were slaughtering each other in massive numbers in Europe. And people got together to separate them. Got together to separate people. But today we have to figure out how do we work together. And that's called building trust. Building trust. The Cold War was ended because trust was built amongst people in both blocs. In an essay that George Shultz, the former Secretary of Defense of the United States, wrote reflecting on his life. And remember, he was one of the people committed to the abolition of nuclear weapons that put in motion the reduction of the arsenals by over 80% since the first summit in Geneva, in which the superpowers said a nuclear war can never be won and must never be fought. And then ended that paragraph saying, and neither party shall seek military advantage over the other. At the height of the Cold War, that was because they trusted each other. As he said, when trust was in the room, whatever room it was, the family room, the school room, the coach's room, the military room, good things happened. When trust was not in the room, good things did not happen. Everything else is the details. Trust is the currency of the realm for the security of our planet. When it breaks down, fear is amplified and exploited. Fear leads to armaments. Armaments reinforce fear, which becomes a descending spiral, a hazardous spiral that leads to dysfunctional, fear-driven, insane behavior. This process of this huge amount of money spent on finding ways to pursue security by building weapons, ironically, the more we perfect the weapon, the less security we get. What could be more insane than that? Is driven by a model of security called, or based on a Roman maxim: prepare for war, receive peace. And this leads to the continual pursuit of military advantage. So now we have 9 countries: the United States, the United Kingdom, China, Russia, France, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea, threatening all of us with over 13,000 nuclear warheads. And if less than 2% of that arsenal was used, it would throw at least 5 million tons of soot into the stratosphere, ending the agricultural base of civilization. So we've moved from mutually assured destruction, so that if any one of these nations uses their whole arsenal, to self-assured destruction. So we've moved from mad to sad. And that's where we are today. And the leaders of these countries are threatening these weapons. Now, there's another paradigm that we know of. The UN Charter is an achievement of the highest order. Before the UN Charter, there were many, many doctrines on how you conduct war, going back to the laws of Hammurabi, going back to the laws of Manu in South Asia, going back to the laws of what you can and can't do in a war that Muhammad laid out, many systems of the limitations in war. But the institution of war does not get condemned by law until the United Nations Charter. That's an enormous achievement. And it is unrealistic to think that the guardrails of international law can be ignored and have a sustainable future. Because the passions driven by fear, coupled with the technological capacity we have for destruction, is inevitably, by accident, design, or madness, going to end us all. And we cannot be ants on a log talking to each other, knowing full well that we're going to go over a waterfall. So we have to have another approach. We have to have an approach that says it's irrational to be destroying species at 1,000 times the evolutionary base rate. It's irrational to have a system of generating energy on the planet that's so adversely affecting the climate that we're going to affect the health of the oceans, which is 50% of our oxygen comes from phytoplankton. If I lose a lung or you lose a lung, we can live. But if the phytoplankton is injured, and it depends on the health of the oceans, our species dies. We ignore these facts at our peril. And the fact of these destructive behaviors is not coming because we don't have enough technical information. It's because we forgot the why. The why. The why, and this conference is so noteworthy because the why is about taking care of people. That's the why of the pursuit of knowledge. And that's why it is such a laudable endeavor that the alma mater university is hosting the Global Peace Offensive, because that is what is needed right now. It is both practical to take proactive engagement using all of the skills of the different disciplines of the world: science, diplomacy, law, culture, art, to look at how do we move toward a peaceful, coherent world. We don't know, there's no silver bullet, what a horrible analogy, silver bullet answer to that question. But we do know that the processes of engagement, dialogue, and addressing problems can lead to extraordinary solutions. And we do know some examples of things that actually work. For example, my colleague from the World Academy of Art and Science, Donato, has identified a whole list of methodologies that we've learned in the realm of diplomacy that work. For example, we know that sometimes graduated reciprocity in threat reduction, unilateral actions, characterized as weakness by the fools who deny our common humanity and demonize adversaries, works. So the United States, which I know very well, had a president with Richard Nixon who unilaterally said, we're going to destroy our biological weapons. We're not going to wait for others to do it. These weapons are morally reprehensible, and we have better ways of defending ourselves. And he started destroying the biological weapons program. 10 years later, there's a treaty banning biological weapons. And the adversary said, wait a minute, we can do the same. The Chemical Weapons Convention was similarly achieved. President George Bush Sr. unilaterally said, the United States is going to get rid of its chemical weapons. Not only will we get rid of threatening to use them, we're going to get possessing them, and destroyed them. A full 10 years before the Chemical Weapons Convention was established. Now that happened also because I was part of a lawyers organization called Lawyers Alliance for World Security, and we went to the business community and said it would be good policy for you to distinguish and put a firewall between the peaceful uses of chemicals and the military uses. And we got the Chemical Manufacturers Association to say, we're going to put up that firewall. And the public loved it. We don't have such a firewall with the nuclear industry. We should, because there's a big difference between using the technology of nuclear technology to kill ourselves and to provide possibly safe, secure energy, if we can figure out what to do with the garbage. But the point is, science is not neutral. Science expresses values in action, and science has to be accountable to the arts of law and morality. The nuclear venture is the first horse out of the barn without those reins. We have to have those reins over AI, and as yet we don't. As yet we don't. All of the stress tests that have been done have shown that AI is not either fully understood nor under control yet. But that's another subject. In the 1960s, there was a woman, Juliet Hollister, who came up with the idea of a venue for she conceived of a place called the Temple of Understanding, in which all of the religious leaders of the world could come together to talk with each other and affirm the values of service, love, compassion, etc. That building never happened, but she started a movement of interfaith dialogue. And now, in all the major cities in the United States, I know very well, there are interfaith councils. It's normative. In Boston alone, there's 55 of them. There's an organization that I'm very active with called the United Religions Initiative, which has hundreds of thousands of groups all over the world, in which you need 7 people in the group of 3 different faith traditions addressing a problem collectively, because we've discovered that when people work together on a problem, they build trust with each other, and then all kinds of creativity happens in the atmosphere of trust. We heard some discussion about how you create innovation and an enabling environment. The best is when a group of people try to solve a problem collectively in a trusting environment. Creativity emerges, because that's the human condition. When you're in a caring environment, all kinds of amazing things happen. So this group, I'm in a group of the United Religions Initiative, And it took us, by the way, it took us about 7 years to create this group. It was funded first to sort of create a parliament of the leadership of religions, but everyone decided we need to create a massive discussion on the planet, particularly amongst people that are not getting along. Like there's big groups in India and Pakistan of people talking to each other. Just like that lawyers group that I mentioned that I was part of, during the height of the Cold War, we had exchanges of lawyers from the then Soviet Union to come to the United States. We showed them jury trials. We showed them bankruptcy court. We showed them judges holding the state in contempt of court, holding the state to the rule of law. They became advocates of glasnost and perestroika, helping to end the Cold War. And lawyers that we sent from the United States to the then Soviet Union came back and said, oh my God, in Russia there are human families. They're not demonic. They're humans, and we can find a way of getting along. That kind of civil society, professional exchanges, whether it's in religion, in law, in art, works. In the height of the Cold War, behind the scenes, it's interesting, while both the United States and the Soviet Union were mutually demonizing each other, and this was a very dangerous period, much like we're in right now, behind the scenes, both countries were encouraging scientific cooperation to address the scourge of polio. They didn't tell the public about it because it would be politically unpopular, but it worked. So the scourge of polio has been addressed. We've prevented it. We've pretty much wiped it out, largely because of that scientific cooperation. So there are many centers of the study of war. There are many colleges of the study of war. There are many interfaith initiatives, the Parliament of the World Religions, Religions for Peace, in almost every country of the world. But there are not very many centers for the study of peace. There are not many initiatives that say, let's coordinate these efforts, particularly the academic community, particularly the scientific study of how do we achieve peace, how do we build trust, how do we use all of the arts and skills that our humanities give us and the technical skills that science gives us, empirically driven knowledge, to work for peace. How do we have a peace offensive? How do we have a center devoted to that? Oxford University has for hundreds of years had a chair in war studies. It's done very well. I know people trying to create a chair in peace studies. But here, in this university, there's going to be a center for the singular purpose of studying and applying peace. And I hope many of you students avail yourself of this and engage in it and demand of your teachers, demand of your elders that they focus on giving you the skills to bring about a peaceful world for you and your children. I think we need a golden rule for today. When the golden rule was articulated, the highest moral standard that's taught everywhere in the world, whether it's refrain from harming others as you don't want to be harmed, or do unto others. When that was articulated, whether it was Confucius, Jesus, Muhammad, Socrates, you couldn't destroy the future. You couldn't. Even if you wanted to melt the polar ice cap, you couldn't do it. But today we're putting the future at risk. So I think one of the arts that we need is the art of ethics. And I think the ethical principle for the 21st century is treat the lives and well-being of future generations as we want to be treated. I own a house. I can paint it. I can sell it. I can rent it. Because I own it, I can destroy it. That's what property is. We don't have a property right for future generations. We don't have a right to use up the regenerative processes of nature for our own greeds and our own wants. We don't have that right. It's impractical and it's immoral. And that's what people care about. And the people don't understand the SDGs, which are articulation of this that support every country but 3 in the world, Haiti, Myanmar, and the United States right now. But it's a norm that says we know how to have a sustainable future. We have the technical expertise. We need the political will. And the political will needs, people need to say, this is morally the right thing to do. We need to take care of future generations. And that boils down to, it was interesting that one of the previous speakers referred to the Einstein-Russell Manifesto, and those are some of the same people that created the World Academy of Art and Science, and I'm sticking to my time here. And they ended their manifesto exactly on what this is about our humanity, about people, about the peace offensive. They said, there lies before us, if we choose, continued progress in happiness, knowledge, and wisdom. Well, wisdom is the application of compassion and love in action. Wisdom is not simply passive. Wisdom has to have life, or it devolves into mere sentiment. Shall we instead choose death because we cannot forget our quarrels? We appeal as human beings to human beings. Remember your humanity and forget the rest. If you can do so, the way lies open to a new paradise. If you cannot, there lies before you the risk of universal death. I believe that the global peace offensive has the potential to stimulate and catalyze the voice of conscience in enormous numbers of people and organizations worldwide who truly believe that people have the will, knowledge, heart, and soul and passionate desire to live harmoniously. There's a powerful constituency sitting on the sidelines. There's a powerful alliance between people who care about a sustainable environment and people who care about peace and security. And anyone who looks into the eyes of their children or grandchildren can say, I have a responsibility to them. But nobody has been bringing them all together. So my colleague Donato has come up with this brilliant idea of a peace offensive. The potential of it is enormous. The need for it is clear. And the only way it's going to happen is by people engaging in it, raising the money, raising their energy, raising their passions, and engaging with each other at a global level. We now are in a time in which when we say we, it doesn't just mean, this is the conference on the status of women, and there's a portion of it in remembering Dr. Jane Goodall. And Dr. Jane Goodall, and I think I'm one of the few guys in this. I taped part of the memorial because I worked so closely with her. And I pointed out that when she said we, it didn't mean just human beings. It meant the whole web of life. And the fact is that if we die, the ants will do just fine, and so will the bees. But if the ants die, we have about 2 months to live. So when we make a commitment toward life, we have to include the web of life. And that's what we now know by science means we're but a thread in this web. And so our sense of connectivity to one another and to the web of life, that is what we have to work at. That's the technical knowledge that we need. And that's about us, human beings. Remember your humanity. That's first. Thank you.